Thank you for being part of this Folding Cultures classroom. I'm going to actually um, begin by saying that you are watching part 2 of a training that we have planned for this particular subject. There is a PDF file that also goes along with that. If you don't have that, I recommend you writing me and seeing if I can get it to you. But this is part 2. So in other words, you should have already seen part 1 of this particular video, which is related to planning. Actually, the title is Focus on Directional Clarity in Strategic Ministry Planning. Specifically, we're talking about youth ministry organization and planning. My name is Mike Manna. I am the academics director for YFC International. And most likely you're watching this because either you know me personally or you're part of a class at a Bible college or seminary where we're training in this subject. So we've already covered in the first part of this module, number 1, that is clarifying your ministry goals through strategic planning. We talked about that first and what that looks like and how you can get through that first step. So I'm not going to assume we're not going to talk about that one because that's already been covered in the first video. The second step, after you have your written ministry goals from your team, I would like you to then, and there was the biblical basis for the planning and why we're doing it. I would like you going on to step number 2, and that is write the action plans related to each specific goals. What does this look like? Well, we have often the 5W questions, what we talk about. But it also is a way, you should probably start off first by remembering. And that would be remembering what you've done in the past and not assuming anything before you go forward. So first, remember the past, consider your values, of course, and all the things that you're going to accomplish, the calendars that you have with other parts of your ministry or church ministry, and then go on to the 5W questions. What, why, who, where, and when. We got to get eventually to the actual writing down of the plans and who's going to accomplish them. So let me give you a little example too. You can look at many different forms online of what you might find of how to write out these plans. But before I go into the 5Ws specifically, let's look at a form. In other words, what action is going to be needed, who is going to be responsible for it, what are the due dates that you have in order to accomplish this program or goals, and then how the date that you want to have it achieved. Okay? So, or when it was achieved. So some of these things might happen as preparation for something that's larger. Or, well, let's just go back. Let me go back to those 5W questions. What, why, who, where, and when. And let me give you an example of what planning might look like. For instance, maybe the goal is that you desire to reach college university students in your city that don't have any relationship with other Christians, and you want to show them the love of Christ, and through relationships, have them desire to become part of the family of God and to become part of even a church family or youth ministry family. So let's say that's your goal. All right. So what are you going to do in order to reach that goal? Well, one church that we were involved with in Kiev, Ukraine, decided that they were going to use English because many of the university students wanted to learn English. And so they would like to make friends with other English speakers. And we had several Ukrainians in our church that did speak English. And also, we're Americans. We spoke English and we attended the church. So they decided to do an English camp, and that maybe to build relationships and then ultimately invite them to be part of our small church family. It was a church plant in Kiev, Ukraine. So why is identified because the purpose is that through the English, those that coming to the English camp, they would actually develop relationships with us and also recognize the love of Christ through our relationships. So that's the why. Who? We identified we were going to reach Christian university student. I mean, no, I'm sorry. University students in Kiev, not Christians, okay? Some that just desired to that maybe learn English. That was their first and foremost plan. Maybe they wanted friendships, I don't know. But mainly to learn English, friendship, and then from there, we had another plan and purpose in mind as well, that they would introduce them to Jesus. So we found a camp, and we found the where. That's the where. We found a camp that we rented as a church. I wasn't leading the camp. I was just helping, and the church leadership was doing it, the Ukrainian church leadership, and we assisted them in the project. And when was decided through a group decision with the church what would be best for everybody, and then also what would be good for the university students, because we thought they were our target audience. And then we basically put the whole plan together on which the camp needed to be found, food needed to be discovered, advertisement for the camp, also registration, costs, what were the costs involved, and all this kind of stuff. And so all of these were listed down in the plan and the action plans, the actual specific plans, in order to reach this ultimate goal. So I would recommend personally that every particular ministry consider these for a micro program, that's the individual program, the camp, or the macro program, that is outreach and reaching new people that have not part of our current ministry, that they would be interested in coming into the ministry and discover who Jesus is. So in a role play situation, it might look something like this. Remember maybe a random country, okay? It could be not Ukraine, it could be some other country that has this new national director. Remember, they're meeting with the leadership team, and they're role-playing now the second planning meeting with this person, the leader of the team, and they go through the W questions for a specific goal, all right? Like I just did. And at the end of the role play, you could also think through the positive outcomes that you desired, but you also might consider the possible problems that you might face. And that is sort of like our hero journey. If you remember the first journey, what were the unknowns that he might particularly come across? And that's an important part of that. And so I would recommend a pause of the video right now. And if you're in a group, you can work together as a group and go through this role play. If you're not, if you're an individual student, write down some ideas of a particular program and think through what are the actions that you needed and who are the people that you need to get involved with. And if you want to think of something that actually works within your particular church or ministry, go ahead and do that. So pause now, write some notes related to this particular process, number 2, and we'll go on to number 3 just in a moment. Thanks. Thanks for coming back after that break, and I hope that you have thought through some of your goals, written down some action plans, but now also I would think about how is this calendar going to look when you think about the big picture. And this is something that we often forget to do when we are doing our planning. But it's not just every single thing that we do in our ministry is isolated in and of itself. It's part of a big picture. The calendar of the church, the calendar of the ministry, the calendar of the schools, the calendar of the families. There are so many other issues related to why we do what we do. And this affects our volunteers. They affects on those that are actually doing the ministry with us. And so we want to consider this because we're a team. We're working together as a team. So one of the ways that you can do this is sort of a fun project. And I wanted to share that with you before I get into a little bit more about designing the program calendar, which is step 3 in our planning process. But that would be something called impromptu speed networking. It's just a fun little project you could do with your team. And let me share what this would look like. Maybe you have a group of, let's say, 10 people that are doing planning with your youth ministry team. I hope that you're blessed with that many people in leadership, or maybe you have even more. But in reality is with volunteers, sometimes our programs, we don't have enough of them, and we might have people getting burned out. And let's ask that question to the group and just ask them. So let's do something called impromptu speed networking. And what that is we give the instructions that all the people are to gather together and to think about this one question. We may have to close down our programs. What should we do about this? What are we going to do in order to solve this issue? So, have everyone leave their own stuff and just gather in an open space, standing up together and tell, okay, I'm going to give you 3 minutes on the clock. Or no, let's say 5 minutes. 5 minutes on the clock. I want everybody to find one person to talk about this question to and to figure out a solution. Go. And they go find somebody and they have 5 minutes to talk with one other person, one-on-one in the group, and to discuss this issue, the problem, and try to find a solution for it. And then you say after 5 minutes, okay, there's a little bell you ring or something like that. And it says, find a new partner. Okay, can't be the same person you talked to. New person, go. And I want you to talk about the exact same problem, exact same issue, and find a solution with this person. And so then you have 2 new people. And then the bell rings again and do it a 3rd time. Well, then after 3 times, that should be enough, talking to different groups of people. But you've had chance for one-on-one discussions about a problem and trying to find a solution. This impromptu speed networking can really assist in organizational planning. Now, I'm not saying that you just do democratically what everybody wants to do and take a vote, but it might have an opportunity to give the leadership some more information and even a new idea of a new plan of how to figure out a solution to something related to the programming that you're trying to accomplish. Because you have to consider all sorts of factors. For example, when you're designing your program calendar, you're going to have to think through about all the different things going on related to schools, vacations, holidays, other ministries that are going on, summers, or maybe winter issues or vacations, depending on where you live in the world. I remember when I started a new church as a youth minister in America, and I went to a church area where they basically shut down every summer. I said, well, we're not going to shut down. We need to do youth ministry. There's young people that need to be won for Christ and see who Jesus is and to see our love for him. So we're going to plan these programs during the summer. Well, we tried, but it didn't work because culturally, people had breaks. They went away for summer vacations and they went for long periods of time, and our small church was unable to bring them together and it failed. And so we have to consider culture when we're thinking about calendars, and we have to put all these things together and do what's called a project analysis for every single program. This might sound a little bit too business oriented, but it really does help to think just through. You can do it basic. You don't have to do the whole blown out project analysis that you would do for a business meeting, but you do need to consider things like, how much staff or volunteers it's going to take, what's the cost going to be, and what are income that you can find for that particular expenses, and what to do if the costs are greater than the income. These are all very good and important questions to consider when you're developing a program. So that is when you consider the calendar for the ministry. Now I want to go on to number 4 of our 5-step plan here, and that is you need to consider the contextualization and maybe even adapt your ministry models for your specific target group. All right, so as you consider the goals and the programs you're planning, it's very important to consider the culture of the target group. For you are not, if you want to reaching non-Christian young people, are you designing a program that only is going to attract or be relevant to Christian young people? These are things that you need to consider as you put some things together. For me personally, I work with different cultures all around the world. You can even look behind me right here. And I have right here behind me coffee cups from different areas of the world. And they make a big difference it shows the culture even in the mug, even in the coffee mug. Right here, I have a Muslim culture right there. Here I have a Christian historical culture, all right? This is from Turkey. This is from Armenia. They border each other, but are much, much different culturally. So the young people are much different as well. And so the programs and how we reach them with the truth of the gospel, the truth of understanding who Jesus is going to look different. Their school systems are different. Their historical basis is different. And I think that we cannot plan to be exactly the same. We can't take something and just transplant it in another place and expect it to work. So we need to contextualize and adapt every ministry model for that target audience. So this is actually what I would ask you to consider with this next pause. What are the current programs that your ministry is involved in, and what are they targeting? What group? And are they reaching this target? Why or why not with the programs that you have planned? Remember, there are 3 dimensions of culture. There's a cognitive, emotional, evaluative levels. I didn't go into all of them. We talk a little bit more in the PDF file and the articles. But you might want to look at your current programs and discuss which cultural dimensions that these particular programs that you have are reaching. Now, this might take some time, so it may not be time that you have today to do, but these are considerations for your teams as you go forward. So this might be a good time to also pause and to consider this, because we've now come through the next 2 sections, basically, on programming in the calendar and also contextualization as we look at organizing our ministries. So pause this for a moment and then come back and we will finish up this little video. On the final section of this video, I would like to cover the topic of evaluating. We cannot plan without evaluating. Why? It's because that ultimately things change. Life changes. I have recently been ministering, especially in the country of Ukraine, where I spent 10 years living there and trained up youth pastors there and youth workers there. Well, when the invasion started and they were being attacked and killed and having to try to figure out how to live in the midst of missile and drone attacks, it's changed everything. And what I originally trained youth workers in has not been fully realized, because some of the things work and they continue on culturally, but some do not. Some have changed. So that is when we evaluate. We have to evaluate for continual improvement and also in the realization that things change. Imagine the classic scene of when a family is on a long, weary cross-country vacation, and as the car pulls into the gas station, the mom storms into the station. She's not talked to dad because he wouldn't check the directions, and as a result, they've been lost for 4 hours. The teenage son spills out of the car, screaming at the middle child, while the baby daughter proceeds to throw up again because she's hot, tired, and car sick. Well, the gas station attendant informs the dad that there's no oil in the car engine and major damage has been done. So you ask the dad, "So how's the trip going?" He smiles and he says, "Wonderful." You ask, "How can it be wonderful with all these problems?" And he answers, "What problems?" This is a sad example of basically not evaluating correctly. We must recognize that what things are going on around us, right? We must pay attention to it. And so in order to do that, we must evaluate. Now there's different kinds of evaluation. There is macro evaluation as we look at the overall goals and the processes and seeing how we are reaching them. For instance, what particular ministry we have is helping evangelism happen. What ministry happens that's moving people towards discipleship? What's moving people towards leadership development? That's macro areas, all right? But then there's micro evaluation of programs as well, where we consider the scope of individual programs and how is that program accomplishing its goals? Who's coming to it? And also, we can't just simply say that if people are not coming, that it's their fault. No, it's the ministries. If we're unable to accomplish what we want to do, then we have to reevaluate why. Why is it this is not working? So ultimately, we need to role play again as a group and think the evaluation process through. For instance, in this same scenario where we had the new national director coming to a team, had been working together for 5 years, can we conduct an evaluative session on one of the new programs that have been implemented? That would be an awesome role play if you happen to be in a small group right now. If you're not, it would be a good time to pause also to reconsider on your own particular programs. The programs that you've been thinking about through this whole training, have you done evaluations of these particular programs for yourself in the past? Or have you ignored what's going on around you? And sort of like that one story where we had somebody coming up in a gas station and ignoring everything going around. No, we want to be doing quality work as a ministry. And so that means that we have to stop and pause and consider these things. So you may pause the video right now and do just that, or you might go ahead and keep it going. I'm only going to talk for another couple of minutes, and then you could actually just think about it after we're done. But the last couple things I wanted to share with you is that at the end of our PDF file, we have something called a workbook for strategic planning. And in that, also, we ask people to do what's called a SWOT analysis of a specific program or their whole ministry. Either one is fine. It's either a macro evaluation or a micro evaluation. A SWOT analysis, of course, maybe you're very familiar with it. It's very common in the world today. To talk about the strengths and weaknesses and the opportunities and threats of any particular project that we have. Strengths and weaknesses, we're talking about internal things related to our strengths of our team and of our ministry, or the weaknesses thereof. And the opportunities, of course, we're talking about external opportunities. What are things that we can accomplish by doing this program? And what might be the threats also to keep us from being able to accomplish these goals? So I recommend that you take a little SWOT analysis of your particular ministry in a way that would be helpful. This is common in our circles that we go around in today in businesses, but we also can use these principles related to our youth ministries as well. I want to just say thank you so much for watching this training. I hope that it's been helpful. The only way to actually learn, though, is to do it and to actually accomplish it. I am a trained coach and a coach mentor, so that means that I use coaching to actually help people do what we've just gone through here. And that is ask somebody questions, almost SWOT type questions, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, in the planning processes. And then you can do this individually or as a team. But coaching, having a coach to help you accomplish that would be great. And if you don't have a coach, have a friend. Work through these things, and if you're in my class, we can work on them together as well. Thank you so much for listening and for being part of this training. I really pray for you as you go forward in your youth ministry, that you're able to put some of these principles to practice, and that it will help you accomplish your goals that God has for us. And of course, the main goal is that people come to know and understand love of Christ and what it means to be truly part of the family of God. Thanks so much for watching.